we can get started here in a few.
Can you hear me just fine?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect.
Okay, great.
Let me just,
Since we're on Zoom, I'm practicing my freeze.
Okay. All right. We are live on Facebook as well. So.
Oh, cool.
I've never done live on Facebook.
Oh, so I get to be the guinea pig, huh?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So, okay. Well, let's, I guess we're going live now. So, I guess everybody that's here, I wanted to introduce Al Cash, who is the creator of Benagene. We've met a couple times, and we've always wanted to do kind of a deeper dive on Benagene because it's, I think, like everybody knows, and I've probably told everybody, this is my favorite supplement out of all the supplements. This is something that this is what I live on. So this is this is Al Cash, and he's the creator of Benagene, and we will kind of be doing a deep dive. So I guess Al, it's all you.
Well, thank you very much, Vlad. I did start the company that makes Benagene. I did some of the original research at UCSD, my gosh, 12, 15 years ago now. And we continue our research all the time. We're fortunate enough that we've been funded by a lot of different agencies to continue our work. So we have our nutritional supplement, which is Benagene, and we've just recently introduced a new supplement called Jubilance because doctors were coming to us and they were saying, I have this woman who has severe emotional distress during her, during PMS, and she told me it got better. And, being a guy, I was like, oh, great. And my wife hit me on the side of the head and she said, no, you don't understand, honey. This is really important. This is life-changing for these women. And so we started talking to more doctors about this. Have you seen this where we see a reduction in depression and anxiety and perceived stress and irritation with oxaloacetate use? And they were all saying, come to think of it, yeah, we are. So we did 2 clinical trials and we've just published that data. So I'll send you that publication that was in just released, and you can post it on your website, Vlad, and some of your customers can see that also.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, what we saw was a 50% reduction in depression as measured by Beck's depression inventory, a 50% reduction in anxiety. And, with current events, who doesn't have anxiety right now? A 36% reduction in perceived stress. So not even, actual stress, but stress just as you perceive it. And about a 20% reduction in irritation, which is the hardest to affect. And one of our concerns, because things that can reduce depression in young people especially, is they can increase suicidal ideation. And so during the clinical trial, one of the questions that we had dealt strictly with suicidal ideation, and we saw a 48.8% drop in suicidal ideation, which is really heartwarming because, you know, I have 3 daughters, and I hate to think that, you know, something that they're taking to, you know, make them feel better actually, you know, puts them at risk. So this was really pretty heartwarming to see.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I guess, I mean, what are a lot of the benefits that, you know, I guess, well, I'll tell a little bit of my story of how I take Benagene. And for me, it's the biggest benefit that I see is an increased concentration. And it's just, it makes my brain just work kind of like in that movie Limitless, where, you know, your brain just, you know, gets a big boost. And it, you know, I take it essentially like a cup of coffee in the morning, and it just helps so much with, you know, being able, I mean, because I have a pretty busy life, and, you know, the business and everything is so stressful and so busy that I need to have, I feel like, a couple additional horsepower in my brain. And I take the Benagene, you know, in the morning, you know, with my coffee, and it kind of gives me a real good kickstart of energy, kickstart of mental clarity. And I have, you know, it gives me this 6 hours is kind of what I've realized, is just gives me this concentration of focus where I can really just nail, you know, concentrate on something very specific and get things knocked out, and, you know, be very productive. And
yeah,
that's kind of the cool stuff. That's one of the coolest things that I've seen. You know, and I've taken paracetam, and I've taken all other, you know, smart drugs, but nothing's that, you know, it's, you know, it's like a cup of coffee for me, and, you know, it works really great. But, you know, you know, we were just talking about this, you know, right before the call, is that's only one of the big benefits. I mean, could you kind of just, I mean, I know there's a ton of benefits, and we're constantly studying these. What are, you know, the big things that other people have experienced?
Well, there's Benagene should be viewed as a tool to help modify metabolism, and we're still understanding new ways to use it, which is very exciting. For instance, the PMS application, and, you know, for you, it helped with anxiety and focus. Now, did you have any jitters when, you know, sometimes when people have a lot of coffee, I feel fine. Yeah, I feel fine. Did you have any of that with Benagene?
No jitters.
I've never heard anybody who has told me that, oh yeah, this makes me, you know, just go a little crazy. So that's a huge point, and we sell a lot of it for cognitive focus, especially to executives. A lot of people take it around 2 in the afternoon after a big lunch. You know, instead of fading away, they take a Benagene, and they can continue to work and be productive, which is really nice. But we use it for a lot of different things. Initially, when we were doing the research, we were interested in aging, and I'm not a biologist, so I look at things a little bit differently. I'm a physicist, and I was brought into this research because calorie restriction, which is a reduction in the amount of energy that you put into your body, calorie restriction, is probably the only thing we've been able to show across the animal kingdom that has increased lifespan in a whole variety of different creatures. I think the only creatures it hasn't worked in is lobsters, and that's because lobsters, we don't know how long lobsters can live. I mean, we've found lobsters that are over 100 years old, which is really weird. But other than that, I mean, starting with single-celled animals and going all the way up through now primates, we see that calorie restriction increases lifespan. And that was very interesting to me. So I tried calorie restriction for a month, and my wife was so happy when I stopped. I mean, she suggested that I was irritable. I know that's not true, but she suggested that. So we started looking at ways to, you know, why does calorie restriction work? And what we were primarily looking at was some work coming out of Harvard and MIT, Lenny Garante's group at MIT and Dave Sinclair's work at Harvard with sirtuins. And they were looking at something that fed the sirtuins and activated the sirtuins, which was nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, or NAD, and its oxidized form, NADH. And one of the people there in the lab, I think it was Lee, headed up the paper that showed that an increase in the NAD plus to NADH ratio turned on many of the same molecular pathways as calorie restriction. And we thought, you know, that's really interesting. Okay, so how do we increase the NAD to NADH ratio? And how do we do it? You know, when they did it at MIT, they did it with genetic engineering, which is way cool.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but if you want something that you can actually use right now, genetic engineering is still a couple of years off, if not 50 years away for humans. So we looked at, my wife just gave me a message. My feed is not working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So Facebook Live may not be, we may have to record this and show this again, but
I think I just fixed the Facebook Live.
Okay, good.
So I think we're good.
Now they said it's working.
Oh, they say now it's working.
Awesome.
So we were talking about calorie restriction, and increasing the NAD to NADH ratio seemed to be the way to start the molecular pathway cascade that leads to a lot of the benefits of calorie restriction. So in calorie restriction, you know, obviously increasing lifespan is a pretty amazing side effect. And one of the only ways we know how to get that side effect. But there are a lot of other things that calorie restriction does. For instance, cancer incidence. I mean, it reduces cancer incidence by over 50%. It's one of the best ways we know to reduce cancer incidence is to go on a calorie restricted diet. The problem is that it's so difficult to do the diet. I mean, there are people in the Calorie Restriction Society that do it as a lifestyle. And I've met some of those people, you know, my hat's off to them. But it is, at least for me, it was extremely difficult to do it. And so having a way that we could hack this biochemically was really important for us to find. And we started looking for ways to increase the NAD to NADH ratio in the cells so that we could get some of the same results as calorie restriction. And we found oxaloacetate, which is a metabolite in the Krebs cycle. It's in essentially every cell of your body, which is pretty neat. And we found that if we give more of that, we increase the NAD to NADH ratio. And I thought, wow, I'm so clever, until I found a paper by a guy named Hans Krebs, who, guess what he did?
Same thing.
Same thing. He used oxaloacetate, and he showed a 900% increase in the NAD to NADH ratio in 2 minutes. So it works very quickly in your cells. So, you know, there went my Nobel Prize. It's kind of a bummer. But anyway, Hans didn't know that this was the starting point of the calorie restriction metabolic cascade. And when we did that, the first time we did it, we did it in C. elegans. They're little worms that a lot of researchers use because we somewhat understand some of their genes. And so I was feeding oxaloacetate to C. elegans worms, and the first time we did it, we got a 25 to 50% increase in survival, which is just, you know, that's pretty amazing. So then we did it in flies, and we saw a 25% increase in survival. And then we did it in mice, and we saw a 25% increase in survival. And we thought, you know, this is pretty interesting. I wonder if anyone has ever used this in human beings. And I found an older paper that was written at the Tohoku Journal of Experimental Medicine, which is in Sendai, Japan, right next to a place called Fukushima, which it's been in the news a little bit anyway. And it was a clinical trial where they were looking at diabetics using oxaloacetate. And they had a huge drop in blood glucose levels in these patients. And I thought, you know, this is pretty interesting. Not only are we seeing calorie restriction effects in animals, but we're also seeing them in human beings now, because if you calorie restrict like a monkey, you eliminate type 2 diabetes, which is pretty cool. I mean, so that's one of the side effects that we see with calorie restriction, and now we're seeing it in human beings when given this compound. So I thought that was pretty important. So I flew to Japan, and even though the study was written way back in 1968, they were nice enough to meet me and talk with me. And I held up the paper and I said, is this your paper? And they said, our department did that. You know, the man who wrote it has passed away, but we wrote that. And fortunately, their English was a lot better than my Japanese. And I said, yeah, you had a 24% reduction in type 2 diabetes in fasting glucose levels. And they go, yeah, it worked fairly well. And I said, where's the following on studies? You know, did anyone get hurt? They go, oh, no, it worked really well. No follow-on studies. I was like, you know, this doesn't make sense. I said, you know, you had something that's a scourge of modern man right now, and you didn't do any follow-on work? And they said, well, it's a natural compound. I said, I know, it's a natural human compound. It's in every cell of your body. And they go, yeah, no patents. And
Oh, wow.
that was the end of our discussion. And yeah, no, I hear them, you know, but just because there's not a patent available on something like that doesn't mean it doesn't work.
Exactly.
So that was an interesting insight. And so I decided to make it as a nutritional supplement for anti-aging because we're able to turn on some of the same molecular pathways as calorie restriction. But the more we've gotten into this, the more we see some of the other benefits are really fascinating. We're seeing reductions in fatigue that are just, you know, incredible. We're seeing better mental focus. And if you think about it, you know, if you have a big meal, you know, after lunch, you're like, whereas if you're a little bit hungry, you know, you're a little bit sharper. I don't know why, but we're seeing these things anecdotally all the time. to the point where, as I said, we've done a clinical trial in some of the emotional effects of PMS, you know, being able to reduce depression and anxiety in these women with PMS issues is life-changing for them. And being able to help people with fatigue is life-changing. Probably the biggest use we see for Benagene, other than anti-aging, which a lot of wealthy people take it just as a hedge, is in cognitive and mental focus, mental fatigue and physical fatigue.
Yeah, that's one of my big reasons I take it. And it's really interesting because, you know, we do quite a bit of these wellness programs, you know, kind of the highway to health is kind of the name that we've kind of dubbed it. And we help, you know, over 90 or 180-day period, we help, you know, pick out the supplements. We go on a one-on-one consultation, and, you know, and I mean, it's centered around peptides. That's the main goal. But we include 3 other products or 6 other products in there, depending on, you know, which program they have. And Benagene just seems to fit into every single one of those, because it's either they're having, you know, everybody, I feel like, has a digestive issue. Everybody has an issue with sleep. You know, everybody has an issue with energy. And, you know, every single person, like 100%, wants more, you know, less brain fog and more mental clarity. I mean, it's, you know, so we end up putting this into every single program just because it's such an amazing product. But the one interesting that really, you know, kind of shocked me is, you know, with, you know, women with, you know, having PMS, right? And having that as an issue. And, you know, me as a guy, I may not have, you know, as much insight into something like this, but, you know, it's been extremely popular with, you know, both, you know, especially in women, because of, you know, just how great it works and how much it helps. And, you know, it feels like really women are taking part of their life back to, you know, how, you know, it used to be. And it's, I mean, that's pretty empowering. So. Yeah,
you know, you know, and it doesn't just work in women. I take it for, you know, anytime I'm in an anxious moment. Like I was in a car accident up in England when I was visiting my daughter. She's a professional volleyball player.
Wow.
And she plays in a different European country every year. This year she's going to be in Switzerland, and she was in Switzerland last year. But I got into I hit a bus. So
oh, wow.
Don't do that. Don't do that. And it was funny. I mean, I was up in Newcastle, which is in the very far northern part of England, just below Scotland, and the people are so nice up there. I mean, it's just like, so I hit the bus driver stops and he comes out and he goes, "Oh, we've had a bit of a bump." And just nicest guy he could possibly be. I'm totally at fault. You know, I reared into the bus because I didn't want to hit somebody else head on, because their roads are only 1.5 car widths wide.
Yeah.
But anyway, after that, I had some anxiety issues every time I got into the car and had to drive through these very narrow streets. And I found that just taking 1 or 2 Benagene right before I started driving, I was fine. And so we're trying to understand some of the mechanisms behind this. And one of the things we've done, we have another company that just looks at the drug applications of oxaloacetate. And we just finished a phase 2 clinical trial in Alzheimer's disease that looks pretty exciting. And one of the things we saw is that oxaloacetate can increase glucose uptake into the brain, specifically into the hippocampus, and which is where memory goes on and a lot of new cell generation goes on. And it's not like the glucose wasn't there before. It was just circulating, but the oxaloacetate actually engages the cells to take it up into the cells. And in Alzheimer's, that's a real big problem, because as the disease goes on, the ability of your brain to take up energy drops off. And as it drops off, all your mental functioning drops off. So that's not a good thing. And being able to not only stabilize that in these patients, but actually reverse it for the first time was very exciting. So we think that might have something to do with the cognitive focus here that other people are seeing at much lower doses that we use for the nutritional supplement. For drugs, we have to go up with very high dosage, and we don't recommend that. And let me just state that Benagene is a nutritional supplement, and it's not intended to prevent, treat, or cure any disease. But we are looking at the same compound at much, much higher dosages in some clinical trials right now that give us some insight into how these things are working. And it's really fascinating.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
What's a good recommendation to take Benagene? How do you take it?
What I tell people is take it every day. Some people say, well, should I take it at night? Should I take it in the morning? Should I take it, I just say take it every day, because some of the changes we see, there are two types of changes we see with oxaloacetate. One is pharmacological, which is, you take it and you see things right away. Like you take it and you feel more energy, or you feel more concentration. But there's a whole nother class of effects that are overseen by gene changes. So your DNA doesn't change, essentially. It's you are what you are.
Yeah.
But there are genes that turn on and turn off all the time in response to your environment, and where you are in growth. As an example, if our finger growth didn't turn off, our fingers would continue to grow the rest of our lives, and we'd look really funny. So it's important for some genes to turn off. What we see with Benagene is it starts mimicking the same genes that are turned on by calorie restriction. And these are important genes for survival, for fat maintenance, for energy maintenance, glucose system support. And so those don't start turning on for, usually we can't measure them until after about 4 to 5 weeks of supplementation. So that's why I say, take it every day. That's the best way to take it.
Awesome. So, I think whether it was through our conversation, it's taking it with vitamin C, with like orange juice. Does that make it work better?
Well, we put some vitamin C in it because one of the things we found out is that helps to stabilize it on the shelf, and having a little bit of extra vitamin C is certainly not a bad thing. So the only ingredients in Benagene are the vitamin C that we add to it and oxaloacetate. It's a very, very simple supplement, and we put that in a shell that's a veggie shell. So if you count the veggie shell, there are 3 ingredients, but very simple formulation. We actually had to pay extra to take out all the flow agents, all the colorants, all the flavoring, all the things that every manufacturer wants to put in. And we said, no, we want super high quality purity material, and that's it. That's all we want. And we found some manufacturers, some GMP manufacturers that could do that for us, and been very happy with the product.
Yeah, we had the same thing with their BIA product. It's, everybody wants 7 million ingredients in there, but it just works so well when it's alone. You really don't want to put anything else in it. It's just, there's no point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if there's any questions right now. It doesn't look like anybody's sent anything in the Facebook or the chat. So
well, one of the interesting uses that I've been hearing lately from our customers, because I always like to talk to our customers.
Me too.
They give me all sorts of insights. Is they've been using it for working out and for athletic competition. And I thought that was really interesting. And we've tied that down to oxaloacetate seems to increase the cycling of the citric acid cycle. And when we measure it in muscle cells, you actually put a muscle cell on a plate and electrically stimulate it, kind of like the old frog legs experiment.
Yeah.
And then you measure the amount of force that's generated by that muscle. And if you do that again, and then again, and again, and again, and you measure the force, what you see is eventually the muscle goes into fatigue, and you can graph that. And then when you add oxaloacetate to that same muscle that's set up, what we see is it takes 10% longer to go into fatigue. So a lot of athletes have started using Benagene right before competition. They'll take like 1 or 2 capsules with about 100 calories of food, and then they go into competition. I know some Olympic medal winning athletes that use it, and some national medal winning athletes that use it on a regular basis. And it's interesting that I asked, how long does this noticeable improvement in endurance last? Because there aren't a lot of things that improve muscular endurance.
Right.
You can take coffee with high amounts of caffeine and you jolt your nervous system, but actually getting your muscles to have more endurance is really an interesting thing. And so they published this. This was work done at UCSD in the Facebook journal, or not Facebook journal. I'm on Facebook. The Fastback Journal, Federation of Experimental something or other. Anyway, pretty interesting thing to be able to have something that increases endurance by up to 10% when you consider most athletic competitions are decided by a margin of less than 0.5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible. Yeah.
Does it help with vascular or cardio exercise as well? So maybe long distance marathon type.
Yeah, it's especially good for endurance type scenarios. So football players use it. Any kind of thing where you have to have mental focus and muscle endurance for a period of time. And I mean, that's just about every sport. I mean, that's even race car driving.
Yeah. I do do a little bit of race car driving as a hobby. I have a little bit of a race team that we put together. So maybe we it's very it's not what you think. It's like more little Miata is what we have, and but now now you're giving me ideas, and whenever the race season starts back up.
Well, how important is mental focus for you as a race car driver?
Oh, it's everything. I mean, it's being able to defeat tunnel vision and being able to process the turns and in memorization of the racetrack, and where you need to brake and where you need to gas, and just being able to do that. And I mean, the stuff that we do is endurance, so it's 24 hours. Not, I mean, it's essentially two 12-hour stints, and you have a team of we have a team of 6 drivers. I mean, we're all amateur drivers, so we're not like Le Mans where those guys can go, straight for, ever. But you start getting really, really mentally and physically drained about 2 hours in. So it's usually like the professionals, they can go in for about 6 hours. But, at a very novice level, we're lasting about 2 hours. But I mean, if you can last 2 hours and 20 minutes, you're gaining, 2, 3, 4 laps on everybody else because they need to do a driver change.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to pull in. So you get, because it's all based on laps. Whoever gets the most laps at the end of the time, wins. Or, I mean, it's in 3 classes, so there's 3 groups, but still, it's, if you, win in the top of your group, I mean, that's the big thing. And a lot of times the deciding factor is 10, 20 laps. So
yeah, there's not a big difference at the end of the day, between the first and second place. I mean, there may be 1 lap difference or less.
Oh yeah, exactly. And
it's amazing how close those competitions are, and anything that gives you an edge. And that's not just in race car driving. I mean, that's in every sport. I mean, look at an NBA game. The score might be 126 to 123. Or a baseball game where it's they're tied for 7 innings, and then all of a sudden one team takes off. So yeah, having something that improves endurance both physically and mentally, it can give you an edge.
Yeah, and I have a lot of customers who I talk to as well, and everybody always looks for, I mean, smart drugs are extremely popular, the paracetams of the world and all those other things. And it's really interesting because I took paracetam for 3 months after my car accident, and it didn't do anything at all for me. It didn't affect me at all, which, we bought a really high quality one from a really respectable company, but it didn't work. And it was so disappointing because I didn't see any mental boost or mental clarity. And I took it kind of, during my car accident. Benagene was one of my biggest things that helped me with mental stability, depression, clarity, just being able to function as a normal adult. But
Wow.
I went off of it for about, after a couple of months, I went off of it and I tried paracetam, and it was just, I don't know, it was kind of disheartening. And I don't know, I have nothing, I mean, paracetam is a great smart drug. It does a lot of wonderful things for a lot of people. It is amazing, but I don't know, Benagene seemed like it, so everybody who says, well, I've been taking paracetam, but it doesn't, do you have anything that can really help it? It's an easy, I'll send it to you for free if you want to try it.
Wow.
It's that good. And and a lot of times, interesting story about Benagene. There was a time where everybody was selling it for really cheap. It was just, it was on Amazon and everybody was selling it for like $29.99, and there was no money at all in it, because it's a very, it's a really good product. So it's, it costs a lot for us to buy it as well. And I would just still buy it. I would still buy cases of it and sell it for a loss because, well, A, I get to take it. And then, B, it was, everybody who I talked to, and I was like, here's this product. We're not making any money on it, but you need it and you want it. And it was,
Wow.
it just, believing in it is I get a little bit of goosebumps just kind of talking about it, just because I get kind of excited. But so
Yeah, it's, you know, as the research goes on this product, we just published an article in Neuro-Oncology showing that high dosage oxaloacetate actually reverses the Warburg effect in glioblastoma, which is brain cancer. And the Warburg effect is where this German scientist Otto Warburg back in the 1930s discovered that cancer cells have a different metabolism than normal cells. And some of the changes he saw was a increase in sugar usage in cancer cells, and it would make this waste product called lactate in the cytosol of the cell, the regular area of the cell, instead of using the mitochondria to burn the sugar with oxygen. And even when oxygen was available, it would still be making these huge pools of lactate in the cells. And he thought, you know, once this happened, can't turn it back. Well, lately we've been showing that you can turn it back. You can push cancer metabolism back towards normal cells. And we're using this right now, and we've just had a phase 2 clinical trial approved by the FDA to go out and try this in brain cancer patients. So again, you know, we don't recommend Benagene for, you know, any disease. And what we're doing, you know, with the medical portion of this, the drug portion of this, the dosages are much, much higher. They're like the equivalent of 3,000% more oxaloacetate. So we obviously don't recommend that unless you're, you know, doing that through your physician. But it's really interesting how we're pushing the boundaries with modifying metabolism to help people. And all the different things that we're seeing with oxaloacetate. You know, imagine something that increases mental focus and fatigue. At least that's what we're hearing from our customers. Something that helps to stabilize blood glucose levels is what we've seen in the literature. You know, we don't sell it for that, and we don't intend for it to be used for that. But it's exciting that, you know, it has all these beneficial effects. And it's just, the more we learn about this, the more exciting it gets.
yeah, definitely. Okay, is there anybody that wants to ask any questions? Feel free to post them up. So I think, you know, I know there's a few people on here, so we got pretty good little group here. So, but yeah, shoot it off.
Well, I certainly want to take my time to thank you for allowing me to talk to some of your customers. And if they have any questions that they want to ask confidentially to me, they can contact me at ACASH, ACASH, at Benagene, BENAGENE.org. And I don't always answer right away, but I do try to get to respond. And I am not a medical doctor, so do not expect any kind of medical advice. I'm not qualified.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody knows they can reach me out, and if you guys want me to connect you, or, you know, if you have a question, you know, feel free to shoot me an email. Everybody's got my email, or Facebook message anyway. So we do have one quick question from Steve. So we can we get some of the links to the studies that were discussed?
Yeah, I can, I'll shoot you an email with a variety of these links that look at the use of oxaloacetate to, for instance, reduce glutamate levels in the brain, which can be important after closed head injury or any kind of brain injury. I can get you some links to some of the medical studies we're doing, and you know, you can also go on clinicaltrials.gov. I can get you a copy of the study we just published looking at depression and anxiety in women with PMS, and how oxaloacetate was able to drop that by 50%, which is just phenomenal changes for their, I mean, that's life-changing. And I hear that it's so funny. I get emails on this, and the first time they try it, I get like a 4-page email, you know, going through all their symptoms and all their issues, and about a month later, I'll get another email that's like 1 page, you know, and then 3 or 4 months later, I'll get another email that just says, thank you. That's all it says. But that's good, because it means that that's no longer the focus of their life. They've changed everything around, and all of a sudden they're out there living life, and you know, this is just, oh yeah, hey, just thank you. Yeah, oh, I got to go pick up the kids, you know, and that's the way they should be, you know. So that's that's very, very fun, very fun.
All right, one more question from Steven. So any other products that you sell? So I think that's an easy one, right?
We just sell oxaloacetate. That's all we sell. We have a variety of different products that we make with it. We sell Benagene, which is our nutritional supplement. We have Jubilance, which is our supplement for emotional PMS, but they're essentially the same thing. We private label the product Keto Prime for the Bulletproof company, Dave Asprey's company. And we're making a medical food now for chronic fatigue syndrome. We're making some drugs now that are in clinical trial. We're in a phase 1 clinical trial for ALS at the University of Kansas. We're starting a phase 2 clinical trial for breast cancer at UCLA. We're just finished up a phase 2 trial in Alzheimer's disease. So but again, all these drug uses are much higher dosage. So don't expect to get the same benefit from the nutritional supplement. But it's interesting that, you know, the nutritional supplement's meant to keep healthy people healthy, is what its real function is.
Okay, awesome. And then one more question from Terry. Are there any benefits for migraines? Does it help with headaches?
You know, we don't have any clinical trial data that shows benefit for migraines, but I have heard from a lot of customers, including my cousin, who takes Benagene just to reduce the incidence of her migraine headaches. But again, that's all anecdotal information, that people tell me that it reduces the incidence, but I don't have, like, I can't tell you what percentage it does and if it would work in you, you know. But I do know people are using it for that, but it's not intended to, you know, we just don't know.
Yeah, okay. All right, anything else? I'm just checking Facebook, making sure there's no comments on messages on there. So I think 3, 2, 1, I guess no more questions.
Okay. Well, thanks again. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me and letting me spout off all this information on oxaloacetate. And I'll send you some of those links that you can post that people can look at some of the scientific studies behind this, because there's a tremendous amount of science behind this one little nutritional supplement.
Yeah, and if so there's one quick question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, Al.
Yeah,
But the
sure.
question is, I have taken 2 bottles of Benagene, first bottle 1 capsule a day, second bottle 2 a day. I didn't notice any changes. Could I be taking more? So, and this is, I think, related to the migraine, which, you know, that's, yeah.
Is this for migraine?
Yeah, it looks like he's trying to help with the migraines.
Yeah, I just don't know the answer to that, and I wish I did. We study a lot of different things, and migraine is on our list, but I don't know if increasing the dosage will help you or not. Just don't know.
Yeah, okay. Well, Terry, if anything, we can, you know, there may be, you know, a different product that we can recommend.
Yeah, that would be great if you could help.
Yeah, PIA I know helps with inflammation and pain, so that's what it's designed for. So that may be a, you know, but brain. Oh, so he's not related to migraines, related to overall energy, brain fog, etc.
Okay, for overall energy and brain fog, we've had people go very high on dosage of Benagene, not at our recommendation, at the recommendation of their physician. And as far as we can see in all the toxicology studies, there's no concern about high dosage levels. I mean, we were able to get up above 5,000 milligrams per kilogram in animals without any adverse effects.
Wow.
Which legally makes it a non-toxic chemical. Now, I mean, you can drown in enough water, right? So, but you know, so going higher is not a problem, but it does get expensive, and I apologize for that. But the oxaloacetate is very difficult to make. We have to go through a patented process to keep it stable, and it's quite involved. So, you know, hopefully as use increases, it will be less and less expensive. But yeah, I'm not sure. In the case of energy, we have some people with chronic fatigue that take high doses, so that you may see some benefit, but you know, it's very individualized, so I don't know.
Okay, Terry, are any other questions? Well, just wanted to kind of, all right, it says thank you, no more. Thank you, Terry.
Okay.
Wanted to let everybody know we also have another webinar on Thursday, which is going to be with Marie Day for Stem Cell Works, which is a great product for boosting, for activating your stem cells, and it helps with exercise, cardiovascular, you know, soft tissue damage of, you know, helping with restoration of your joints and those items as well. So that's going to be Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, just so everybody knows. And if you guys have any more questions, you know, always shoot me an email, Facebook message, you know. You guys have a great way of contacting me. You know, I feel like everybody everybody gets connected. So if you have any issues, there's, you know, on our website, there's a million buttons you can click to send me an email, and I'll be there. And, you know, I'm up answering questions whenever everybody is available, you know, phone call, whatever, I'm available. So, yeah, and thank you, Al. And hopefully you have a lot of good luck with more of your studies, because this is very exciting, and it seems like we're only tapping into the potentials and the possibilities of Benagene. Because every time I talk to somebody, I had somebody message me that they have improved digestion with Benagene. So it's, which I've never, had anybody, I've never recommended it for digestion, but it's pretty incredible, and hopefully you keep growing. And I mean, this is pretty awesome.
Thanks again.
All right, thanks everybody.